Is this thing on? I think
Not
this
yet.
thing is on. It's not? We're recording. Are we live though?
Not yet. Share to your page. Look up a set.
We could also go back to old.
Now
Now this thing is on.
Now this thing's on. Tap, 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 tap.
Tap, tap, tap.
Well, cool. So, hold on. Setting it up. Welcome back.
Welcome back to everybody. We're here at Between the Lines, our monthly book club, and we are on month what? Month 11.
Ooh, we are on 11. God, that's so crazy. It has been a eventful year. We reached our first year anniversary, last month? But it's a cool experience to go through this with you. I hope you've enjoyed it, Katie. I hope you guys out in the—
Who are you anyway?
Oh yeah, me. Compass South. I'm here with my co-host Katie Clancy. This is Between the Lines, so this is our favorite thing to do every month, which is our monthly book club, where we are reading all sorts of books, not geared towards real estate, but geared towards personal development, professional development, development in general.
Absolutely.
So welcome. Yes, and I love that we're here together. I'm excited to be here. I'm recovering. I've been on the road, which is why I look the way that I do. So I'm recovering for my 3-4 days at home before I go back out on the road, which is exciting. I love getting to see so many of you guys and hearing about your experiences reading these books too. So Katie, what did we read this month?
This month we read Everything is Figureoutable by Marie Forleo.
Yes.
And yeah. And it's actually, I listened to it. This is one of the ones that I listened to. I didn't read, but I'm thinking I might go buy a copy of it. I'm kind of into, I like her exercises. I want to read them, but that's a whole other thing. Yeah. So it kind of goes through 10 chapters. We're not going to give you every piece of every chapter, but the title kind of says it all. Everything is figureoutable. Yeah.
True. Isn't it one of those things? I think especially as women sometimes, but I think this happens to everybody, but women especially, is we kind of hold ourselves back because we say, I might not be ready for this, or I don't know how to do that yet. And I know personally, as a mom, I say to my kids all the time, you didn't know how to walk before you walked. You eventually figured out how to do it. And I have a good friend named Mary Lane Sloan in Columbia, South Carolina. She was sharing with me this. She always says to herself and to her kids, I can do hard things. And so when her kids say hard, she says, well, that's great, because what can we do? And they say hard things.
Hard things. Yeah.
Which is pretty funny to me. But I really think it's one of those things that really resonated with me, because I kind of get in my own head. How about you, Katie?
Oh. No, that never happens.
That was a softball for you.
Yeah, that was pretty good. No, I think the thing about this book, it was kind of cool the way she came across the concept of everything is figureoutable just by watching her mother figure things out. And it was just like this light bulb moment for her. She was like, wow, everything is, barring the laws of physics, figureoutable, basically. And she puts all the disclaimers in, like death is a tough one to figure out, but whatever. The point is that everything really is figureoutable, and most of the problems and most of the reasons you don't do what you want to do, or you get stuck in a problem, is because you believe that you cannot figure it out. But in fact, most of the time you can. It will be hard, and that's the thing that, there's so many things that get people caught up. So if you don't mind, I'm just gonna kind of tell everybody what those 10 chapters were, and then that'll sort of be your summary. You guys can have a sense of what's going on there, and I'll give you an idea of what the structure of the book was. So you will come away believing that everything is figureoutable, and have a little bit of some of the tools that she talks about. And then you'll also hear about how we're using it personally and what sort of, resonated for us. All right. So 10 chapters. The first one, what?
Sorry, before you jump in, I think one of the things that I want you guys that may have not have read the book to get before we jump into this part is the idea of everything is figureoutable kind of, if you didn't read the book, sort of sets the stage that, hey, she had all of this hardship come upon her and had to kind of rags to riches figure things out because of bad stuff that happened. What I found extremely interesting in the beginning of the book is that was not the case. She actually experienced tremendous and kind of used the right mix of head and heart to say, hey, I'm just not, this is not fulfilling, I'm not happy here, so I want to figure something else out. So I want to set the stage with that before you dive into it, because I think that's so relevant to what we're talking about, is just because you're successful does not mean it's the right space for you.
Yeah, no, and that's a very good point, because her this whole thing for her started, she was trying to figure out what she wanted to be when she grew up, and she had every reason to have she had all sorts of incredible opportunities, and none of them were good fits. And after 4 years of quitting jobs, she was it's not really a rags to riches, but she was living in someone's couch and estranged from her family. So there really was some struggle there, as she literally figured out who she was and what she was going to do. And now she's a raging success who continues to grow and figure things out, because as things went on and as she grew and as she tried new things and tried to grow, there's never a shortage of things to figure out. Good?
Good. Go ahead.
All right. So chapter 1 is called Tropicana Orange, and it's the story about her mom and this Tropicana Orange radio, and it's kind of a cute story. Kind of sets it up. Number 2, chapter 2 gives you a bit of a roadmap, her roadmap and what yours might look like. And then she dives into the tactical stuff. Chapter 3 is the magic of belief, and there's pretty stunning things about what your brain will do. A lot of science about belief that can help you, realize that maybe if I change my beliefs, I change my outcome. Number 4, eliminating excuses. That was like a zinger. And I love, if you guys pick any chapter to do the exercise on, that's a really good one, eliminating excuses. Chapter 5 was how to deal with the fear of anything. Also very good. Number 6, define your dream. That's a fun one to dig into. Number 7, start before you're ready. That one gave me all pricklies in my armpits, but it was obviously a good chapter for me. Chapter 8, progress, not perfection. We've all heard it. She really lays it out. And I just love the way it's just broken down. It's so bite-sized. It's so accessible. Number 9, refuse to be refused. I almost didn't listen to this chapter because I knew it was going to be about people, naysayers, and people telling her how bad she was and how she couldn't do it. And because I was like, oh, that makes me very uncomfortable. But I listened to it. And it was good, and how to use that stuff. Come on, you guys. And then chapter 10, the final chapter, is the world needs your special gift. And it's a tie between chapter 4 and chapter 10 for my favorite. What were your favorite takeaways from the book, Alyssa?
So my favorite takeaway, the biggest takeaway that I got, and I guess sort of both a takeaway and something I'm going to put into practice, is to trust my gut some more. Yes. It's something that, I think we all sort of struggle with it. And I got that from chapter 7 with starting before you're ready. Because I think I tend to have ideas and then in the process go through and say, but what if I did it this way? Or what if I changed things this way? And, should I do this? I see somebody doing something similar or somebody more established doing something. And I tend to kind of get in that negative headspace that way. But trusting my gut and really going after it for me is a huge takeaway, because I think it's something that, what she points out is the absolute truth, is regardless of our perceptions out there, nobody's really ready. like the readiness factor is kind of subjective, regardless of what you're in. And I mean, not to use the title as the takeaway, but like you can figure a lot out as you go, and things can look different. So one of the ways that I'm doing this month is I revisited a practice that I started doing a few years ago, which was sprints. And sprints are really defining action and forcing you into action in quick like windows. And so I'll do 6-week sprints where it's like 2 weeks to plan and then 2 weeks to execute. And you kind of go through this whole process.
I like that.
And you also only have 2 weeks to kind of criticize. Like you go into launch phase and like it's launched in month 1. And then you kind of take back feedback in the last 2 weeks of that. And so I think that's one of those things is, you know, you always have to be open to feedback, but if you're constantly changing the things that you're doing or your course of action, you're never really actually putting anything out there. And so, yeah, that trusting my gut in terms of starting before I'm ready is a big one for me. What about
so for me on that same chapter, starting before you're ready, the trusting your gut, everybody gives that advice. Like, okay, how? And that's what I like. She actually lays out the how for that, how to discern what is intuition and what is actual fear, or what is like actual, like, this is a bad idea. Like, this is truly not something you should do. And this is something you should do. And she, you know, and it's about, you know, check in with your body, blah, blah, blah. But I loved it because I, you know, you can tell me to check in with my body, or you can say the steps that she says, which is, you know, take a few breaths, ask this question, see how your body responds now. And this means that, and that means this. And I was like, okay, she gave me the language in what?
Nail on the head, which everybody tells you like these very open-ended statements, like trust your gut. But the difference in this book, a little bit between this book and Can't Hurt Me is I really felt like, even though he has some of these exercises, I really felt like she walked me through the steps to say, okay, when people tell you to trust your gut, like this is what it means, and then this is how you do it.
Yeah.
And for me, it just was so much more consumable in that way, because you're right. Like you hear from stages, you hear on podcasts and stuff like this, like trust your gut, trust the process, all of this stuff.
Yes, eliminate excuses. Belief is powerful. But yeah. I would say actually, you know, now that you're saying that, because all of my big takeaways go under that same theme, which is she takes sort of a lot of old saws that trust your gut, you know, belief, eliminate excuses, start before you're ready. We've all heard that. She tells you what it means and exactly how to do it. First do this, then do that. She absolutely annihilates any possibility of excuse. Like if you read this book and you do even half of it, stuff's going to happen. And that's really the kind of I think the coolest thing about it. Yeah. So that's the big takeaway.
Yeah. I think that for me, as I watched it, like I opened it up to the contents and I was like, I don't know about this book. Like, I know I suggested it, but I feel everything that it says in these chapters. But you're right, that tactical, like how to actually take those steps and do it, for me was powerful. And I love that she also includes, she calls them even more figure-outable field notes, or figure-outable
the field notes. Yep.
And for me, that resonated so much more because, you know, in comparison to Can't Hurt Me, for instance, you know, David Goggins is not the most relatable individual.
Not for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Because he does some amazing things. I admire him, you know, a whole lot, but like the tie to my life, I struggled with. And so, and I probably would have with some of the things that she even said. But the field notes are stories from everyday individuals that are out there doing this work. Which I found really inspiring and cool to say like, oh, cool, other people struggle with this and this is how they're figuring that out. Even if it didn't follow her process, which I thought was really interesting.
That actually was a really good point, where there was one exercise where she said, what's the thing that you want to do? You know, all right, so write that thing down. Has it ever been done by anyone? before. And virtually everything that you and I want to do has been done by someone before. And then she's like, well, how many people? And you start thinking about it, you're like, well, thousands of people have done what I want to do. And it starts to make it, talk about relatable. You're like, well, if thousands of people can do a thing, I think I could probably have a shot. It gives you a little bit of faith and confidence to be able to go forward and do it. So before we go into action steps on this, do you have any other takeaways that you wanted to share?
Well, what I loved about it is, I think she does something that one of my first bosses told me to do. She calls it starting a hype file. But I do emails because we all have really cruddy days sometimes, right?
Yep.
And it's basically a hype file is somewhere where you collect nice things that people said about you, thank yous, accolades, cool stuff. And, you know, I think this is a very common feeling of successful people or people in general that forget all of these amazing things you've done and all of these people that love you, appreciate you when you're having a crap day. And
doesn't
that
exist.
hype can really bring you out and bring you back into a positive mindset.
That's actually a really good point. And I actually have a page. I still have an old, and I pull it out from time to time at listing appointments, like my brag book, kind of, you know, just like, this is my marketing, blah, 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 you know, this is how we do it. But in the last 2 pages is plastered with thank you notes. And then the very last page is a poem from my father-in-law, a note from my daughter. This, you know, it's total hype pages, like total, like get my head on straight. That's funny. I did it before I read the book.
I know. Well, and I think that's interesting. Like, we kind of skipped this part of book club this week or this month. But it ties so well with Atomic Habits, don't you think?
Yes.
Like, I know my goal last month was to be more process oriented and focus on the habits, because I loved his point, James Clear's point in Atomic Habits, where he talks about your trajectory. For instance, like, you can be a millionaire, but if you're spending outside what you're making, you will eventually be broke. Or you could be broke, and if you're saving a little bit, like, you could eventually be a millionaire. It's the trajectory, not where you are right now. And yours was more about your identity and kind of reflecting on some of your habits. Like, does this habit truly tie back to who I want to be? And I think, you know, you and I have talked a little bit about, you're able to stick to those commitments pretty well this month. And I think a lot of it has to do with the book that we read really piggybacked really well off of that.
Absolutely. And actually, well, go ahead.
No, please.
I was forgetting that I actually did my homework. I didn't realize this was the homework. I was like, crap.
That's even better.
I really did do it. So one of the things, so I had a back surgery this year, and I'm working out and everything. I gained a little weight. I'm really bummed about it. I'm like, what would an athlete do? What does a fit person do? Well, first of all, you don't get fat in 2 weeks. So stop trying to lose the weight in 2 weeks. So I just started messing with, I looked, I said, you know, if I wanted to lose the weight as fast as I gained it, how long would it take me? And it was like 6 months. And I thought, all right, well, why don't I just be a person who is recovering and getting back into being an athlete? And I did the math for it. And I thought, that easy peasy lemon squeezy. And going to the gym. And now I get on the scale and I'm like, yeah, it's right where I should be. It's fine. It's sneaking down just like it snuck up. Yeah. So it was great. And I'm so much more chill about the whole idea of it. It's pretty cool.
Totally.
One more.
To bring that up to everybody, though, is what happened to me this month, actually what happened to both of us this month, with the books tying so well together, is really the reason why we do this, right? And so we're in it for the personal development, not the pages. And we want to build these habits. We want to build these practices. And it's something that's deeply important to both you and I. And, you know, my takeaway from this month was not only to trust my gut, but kind of my commitment for next month was that above all things, I want to cultivate patience. And that goes right back into that process-oriented commitment from last month. And so
Yep.
reading these books, whether you read them, whether you listen to us each month, like, you're building things. Things take time. And I loved her example. She said, she uses the example and says, but somebody writing to her says, but Marie, I've been working on my blank, business, acting, writing, music, sculptures, whatever it is, for at least blank, however long, and I'm going nowhere. What's wrong with me? How long is this going to take? And her answer, which I loved, was as long as it does. And it's so true, because I think, you know, you talking about your recovery, me talking about, you know, building some habits, building my business. It's one of those things that whatever the task, whatever the goal, whatever the achievement, it is going to take as long as it takes to get it done. Now, you can do some things to help speed that process up, which we pulled from other books, but that's something I think all of us just constantly need to be reminding ourselves of is, you know, you're not behind, you're right where you belong. And right
My
where
favorite saying that ties right into that is, be attached to the activity, not the outcome.
Absolutely. That was ringing in my head as I was reading that, as I said, oh, Katie's going to like that page. But I agree, because it's so important. Like, it's so difficult sometimes in the process to look over and compare yourself and really get stuck in that negative headspace. But your time looks different than my time, who looks different from anybody else's time. And so I'm a big person of faith, and I believe that, you know, we're right where we need to be at any given time and right where we're needed. Reminding ourselves of that in the day-to-day life is difficult, but very, very necessary.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so before we go into what we're going to be accountable for next time, I want to say one more thing of a takeaway that I hope other people get. Then we'll talk about what we're going to do this month individually, and then we'll tell everybody what's happening next month, which is kind of cool. So the last thing that I wanted to say is that chapter 10, the world needs your special gift. Talking about being a person of faith. So stay with me here for a minute. So let's assume that you really are given gifts. Like, you're in line, God's like, okay, you're going to be really good at communicating and also run very fast. Find something to do with that. And you're going to be, you know, immune to everything. And who knows? So you have these gifts. And the idea is that you use them not so much for yourself, but that you're being given them to serve a greater purpose. So the fact that you're a great coach, it's satisfying to you to do that. Your coaching makes you feel good. It's very gratifying, all that stuff. And if you didn't do it, if you're like, oh, who do I think I am, blah, then you would be depriving all of these people of this great service, and you were making them better and therefore making the world better. Your gifts have a purpose to make the world a better place. And if you don't use them, it's just like if someone hands you a present and you go, thanks, and chuck it, never open it, never use it. You're a jerk, okay? So if you don't use your gifts, you're a jerk.
I love that analogy, though. It's really, I mean, it kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah, so there's that. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose, and I'm choosing, I'm not doing all of them. I am going to do 3 chapters worth of exercises in this book.
I love it.
I didn't do any.
I love it. My commitment in it, kind of piggybacking off of my cultivating patience, is I'm going to be intentional about not only cultivating patience in myself, but when I see others that are struggling with patience, trying to cultivate patience in them.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That I think so many of us need.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Can I tell you one more thing? I'm going to tell everybody one more thing. I just came back from the National Association of Realtors Conference, and I took a great course on, this ties back to another book we read. I took a great course on time management. And actually, this is this is for Free to Focus. So I had bought, when we did Free to Focus, I bought the Free to Focus journal and then did nothing with it because I'm like, I don't know, this is so, I have to start it right at the beginning of a quarter, and I don't really know how to, I don't know what my big goals are. Maybe I'll wait to the first of the year and do it. I picked it up. I came back, I picked it up. I started using it yesterday. So kind of excited.
I love it.
Yeah. I just did it.
Proving my point. This is exactly why we do this. I look at, it was kind of a big aha moment for me last month to see how much both you and I have developed personally through this process over the last year. Is, look, like, if you miss a month, cool, don't worry about it. If you don't read the book, great, like don't worry about it. But the things that we're taking, whether it's the month that we do that book, or, hey, I remember reading something and you can pull on that later, that's where it's at. Like, and having kind of this reserve of knowledge and growth that we're all going through is really the reason why we're doing this.
Yeah, it's so true. All right, good. So our next date is TBD. We have a couple of schedule things that we have to work out, but what we're going to do during that time is we're going to take all 11 books that we've read and do a quick recap of all of those, and we'll talk about our learnings. Alyssa and I have some things up our sleeves. I'd love to have some of you share some of your learning, some of the things that you've gotten out of these books. And then we'll have some announcements and whatnot. So keep an eye on the Compass South page and in this group, and we will be announcing the date and inviting you to come and participate.
Absolutely. And so again, like we were saying, if you've missed out on any of the books this month, or excuse me, this year, we're going to take like quick snapshots of each book, our big takeaways from all of the books. It's exciting. That's why we're taking some time, because it takes some prep stuff on our end that we want to make sure that we're delivering some real value for you guys. But we are super excited about that and can't wait. But other than that, this will be up on YouTube today if you guys missed it. And you can always catch us on all of your favorite podcasting streaming services. But until next time, I hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving too.
Yes, exactly. We won't see you till after that.
Yes.
All right, guys.